Mark, you recently hit the milestone of 15 years, and congratulations with the Gates Foundation. How would you weigh the global response to the pandemic compared to other public health challenges you've tackled? And what lessons do you hope were learned these past 2 years?
Yes, well, I think the biggest lesson, actually, I was still at the United Nations before I joined the Gates Foundation, is what Dr. John was referring to, which was the transition that became the Global Fund to Fight HIV, TB, and Malaria, and PEPFAR, which was at the early 2000s, which took, as he said, 15 years of deaths around the world and a big time lag of many years for getting the world's responding to get antiretrovirals and other tools on HIV specifically, but then also tackling long neglected diseases like tuberculosis and malaria. And so I think that is the closest analogy we have. And the world did, in the end, respond, albeit late. And it's been a very impressive response that has saved literally millions upon millions of lives over the last 2 decades. What we are seeing now in that response is, to some degree, back in the glass half full, half empty, a half empty response, because we've seen these delays and setbacks and the nationalism and the, again, many deaths that could have been averted had we had more equitable distribution. But we are at least trying to have the discussion that we're having on this panel today and saying that is unacceptable. As Jose was saying, that is not a world that we want to live in for the future, that we can afford to live in for the future, and that we need to then create collectively a structure that allows us to both finish the current response. And by the current response, I mean not just to the COVID vaccine delivery issues, but we have seen setbacks for the first time in HIV in Africa and more broadly. In malaria, after 2 decades of progress, steady progress, we've seen a reverse in the last couple of years. And on top of that, with the economic issues that Ian was talking about, we've seen increases in absolute poverty in sort of the lowest, the very poorest, after nearly 2 decades of steady reductions of hundreds of millions of people coming out of poverty. So the wider impact of the COVID crisis, well beyond COVID itself, requires a very different focus. And it does require wealthier countries to step up.